Welcome to We Care, We Talk, number 3, Curators in Conversation. It's a collaboration between CCA Tel Aviv-Yafo and WalkTalk platform. And we are honored to host today Rita Kersting, Deputy Director of Ludwig Museum in Cologne. Nicola, the stage is yours. I'm putting you now on spotlight, as well as... Wait, you are on mute. Nicola, can you hear me?
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good evening. So we start with session 3, and I want to thank you, all of you, for being here tonight for this wonderful meeting with Rita. And I just want to say before we start, we'll get there after that, Rita is Deputy Director at Museum Ludwig in Cologne, and she was also Curator of Contemporary Art at Israel Museum, Jerusalem. So, and many other things, but as we say, the session is so short, we'll get into the questions. So I'm gonna share the screen and we start.
Just a second, but sorry. Rita is on mute, so I need to ask you to unmute. Okay, now you're.
Now, Rita, can you hear us?
Yes.
Great. So let's start.
Yes, I would like to thank you for the invitation. I'm very moved to see all of you. I have been thinking about Israel the last 72 days very much and especially. And I understand that tonight is a kind of distraction from this terrible time, but it's nice to be connected. So, Nicola, thank you very much that you invited me.
Thank you, Rita. We are so happy to have you, really. Okay, so we start with this quote, that Rita gave when she was appointed Deputy Director. The Museum Ludwig is strong and radiant. Not only its modernist art and pop art collection are extraordinary, but also its contemporary art. So we'll go back to this, but I think it's important to start with this sentence. So before we get to Rita, I think it was important to speak about the previous episodes of We Care, We Talk. So in session 1, we spoke with Fanny Fetzer, Director of Kunstmuseum Luzern, and we spoke about the challenging, how we can challenge the museum status quo with unknown artists, with female artists, and how to pair them with blockbuster exhibitions. And then the previous session, session 2, with Yasmil Raymond, who is the rector of Städteschule and director of Porticos in Frankfurt, we spoke about this loyalty to artists and making the dream of artists come true. So we had 2 different institutional curators in our previous episode, and now it's time to go with Rita. And I would like to, of course, start the conversation with the Museum Ludwig. And I just want to give you the floor, if you could tell us in few words the essence of this very, very important institution, and really, if you could give us your point of view, why it's so special, the Ludwig. We all know it's special, but why for you it's so special?
Yes, Museum Ludwig is called after Peter and Irene Ludwig, 2 donors who donated their collection to the city of Cologne in the mid-70s. And this museum was built in the mid-80s. And you see a bird's perspective. It's next to the cathedral, Kölner Dome, which is cut off on the left-hand corner. It's next to the main central station and to the River Rhine, which is cut off on the upper side. And they donated a great collection of Picasso, of contemporary art, later on the so-called Russian avant-garde, And yeah, you see here a Picasso painting. It's the third biggest collection of Picasso in the world after Paris and Barcelona, two Picasso museums. Ludwig's were both art historians, and they developed a chocolate company that operated more or less worldwide. So they traveled a lot, and different to other collectors at the time in the 70s, 80s. They didn't really collect globally, but we have very interesting works in the collection that are not only from Western and NATO countries. But Picasso was a strong spot, and also pop art that you see on the below. And they went to America early, and Peter Ludwig acquired pop art when American collectors still thought, is this going to last? Or will this be over in a couple of years? And still, when I enter this room of pop art, I can still feel that there is a kind of freshness, and that you still think these Brillo boxes, is this art? It's our old master now, but yes, it's still fascinating pop art. And then you see an expressionist painting, 5 women on the street on Potsdamer Platz, prostitutes, famous painting by Ernst Ludwig Kirchner. And this was not donated by Ludwig's, but by Josef Haubrich. He was an advocate before the war. He was the role model for Peter Ludwig. And he donated his collection right after the Second World War. And actually, we should be called Haubrich Ludwig Museum. Yes, and then there is a Kippenberger painting. Nicola thank you, Nicola, for this presentation. I don't know where you found all this, but it's
on the internet.
Yeah, so it's a representation of 80s, 90s art. Cologne was, as you know, not the center of the world, but a very important part of art history of the second half of the 20th century. And Kippenberger made this painting of the sympathetic communist in the middle of the Cold War. And he was one of the Cologne artists. Gerhard Richter is still living here. So yeah, and on you see a work by Minerva Cuevas. It's actual from our presentation right now. She made a work, she's from Mexico, and made a work very much connected to questions that we have at the museum. Yes, we need to move on, Nicola.
Yeah, sorry.
So yes, Ludwig's, I said that they traveled a lot, and they established international connections to many museums, from Beijing to Havana, from St. Petersburg to Budapest. And you see different directors were here in our Museum Ludwig. We are sort of the center of the Ludwig cosmos. And Mark Scheps was director right here, as you see, from 91 till 97. He worked closely together with Peter Ludwig, who was still alive at the time, and right after he was director of Tel Aviv Museum. And now Yilmaz Givior, he's our director, and yeah, we have a great team. Yeah, we move on.
Yeah. Now, next, before I go to the next question, I just want to add to what Rita said, that really in the Ludwig, you can have this amazing Picasso, you have one of the best pop art collections, but you also have a lot of contemporary art. Before we get to that, I want to ask Rita about a specific exhibition, and she initiated and co-curated with a team, and especially with the conservator of Museum Ludwig. It was called Russian Avant-Garde at the Museum Ludwig, Original and Fake Questions, Research, Explanations. Tell us, this is such a unique, everybody wrote about it, New York Times, The Guardian, you know, you Google and every newspaper wrote about it. Tell us about this exhibition.
Mm-hmm. Like some other collectors in the 70s, 80s, Peter Ludwig was very fascinated by Russian avant-garde art. So art that was produced from 1900 till 1930 in Moscow, in St. Petersburg, but also in Kiev, Kharkiv, and so on, and acquired works, but there was no knowledge about, you know, who was Lyubov Popova, how do paintings by Kazimir Malevich really look like. So there were many artists that those collectors acquired through, you know, a gallery, for example, here in Cologne, but also other sources. And there in all the Western collections, except the one of George Kostakis, who himself acquired in the Soviet Union from the 40s on, all these collections have fake works, forgeries. It was quite easy to make people believe that this is Russian avant-garde. So there is not very much expertise in the West because our eyes are poisoned with fake works. So yeah, Russian avant-garde, as you know, yeah, Malevich was one of the leaders. We don't call it Russian avant-garde now, not anymore. I can talk about this later. It has to do with the war against Ukraine, but not only it wasn't Russian also before. We should have known that, you know, and they didn't call themselves the artists avant-garde. So they called themselves, as Nicola put here, suprematists, constructivists, cubo-futurists, and so on. So suprematism, the inventor was Kazimir Malevich, and you see the famous exhibition 010 in Petrograd in 1915, and you see that he presented his black square in the corner of the room, which was the place for the icons. And on the left-hand side, there is a painting that now belongs to us, and where we can trace the provenance. Yeah, it's a little bit lower. Yeah, it does. Yeah. One right, one higher on the right. Yes, you come. No, on the right-hand side, a little bit more to the right. Yes.
This one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, so there we have in our collection 100 paintings and many more works, graphic works, photography, and so on. But 100 paintings, and we started to analyze 50 paintings. And we made an exhibition that was very interesting for a lot of people, also that don't come to museums so often, because the question of fake is present also with sneakers or with watches. And I would like to stress that it's a real problem in Russian avant-garde, of course but in our museum or in museums, you know, you normally can trust what we have on the wall. So in the exhibition, when you entered, after a while, you realized that all the works that have frames are originals. All the works that are unframed, we investigated, and we, they turned out to be forgeries. So here, for example, and then you see that there is a table, and we explained it, we summarized, we looked at, from an art historical point of view, we looked at the provenance, and we looked at the technological research. It's standard, international standard for authentication. And here, for example, you see a work that Ludwig acquired. It has no frame. It turned out to be a fake. It's supposed to be by Olga Rozanova. And on the right-hand side, you see an original painting. And we were very happy that Thyssen-Bornemisza that we could borrow this painting from them to show them next to each other. And so the forgery was probably done after a reproduction in a catalog that Hutton Galleries published in the beginning of the 70s. And in that time, the colors were not really well in the catalogs. So you can really see, on the right-hand side, you can see Olga Rozanova painted a distorted man. You see his high head, the cylinder, and in an urban setting, can you see the man, the figure? And so this painting was turned around, and yeah, there's some strange composition with dull colors, and yeah, it looks like but it looks like, it's not Olga Rozanova. So in addition to this, we looked at the material, at the pigments. There was titanium white, and there was polyester in the canvas. So Rozanova died in 1918, so she cannot have painted this picture. So it was interesting also to have the originals and also the fakes on the wall. It was for the last time that we have those forgeries on the wall. We put them in storage now and make them public in the database. And we still need to go on, but we don't have money at the moment for this kind of research and capacities. But it was very interesting. So yeah, with contemporary art
Rita, I just wanted to, because it's funny to move from avant-garde in Russia, Ukraine, in the Soviet Union, to the guerrilla girls who made this very provocative statement about the Museum Ludwig. And it seems very disconnected, but in fact, I feel it's truly very connected. And I tell you, and here we move to the next question about the museum and contemporary art. But if you think about this exhibition, truly, it's a real action of institutional critique, because the museum deciding to say out loud that the collection has fake artworks in it, when, you know, usually this is something that you wouldn't even, you wouldn't want to put into question your authority. Then in a way you do the same when you invite the guerrilla girls that will look at all the problems that museums have and put it, in big billboards or in posters. So I think, I want you to speak about the contemporary art, because also it's your specialty and your passion, I can say, because we had the conversation also when you were at Israel Museum. I mean, this is really and you said it at the beginning in the quote, but I just wanted to make this connection between, how can the museum question itself from within. I think Ludwig is doing it, and only a strong institution can do it, I believe. And with that, I really would like you to tell us a bit about the contemporary art program at Museum Ludwig.
Yes, Nicola, it's like you said, the artists, the contemporary artists, can help us understand our collection better. And for our 40th anniversary in 2016, we invited artists to look at the collection. And so it was, critical questions were asked about, many aspects of the collection. Marcel Odenbach, for example, a Cologne-based artist who had a great show at the Tel Aviv Museum 10 years ago, looked at also Ludwig, and the guerrilla girls, they looked at our lists and looked at, about our exhibitions and our acquisitions, and they found, they analyzed it, and they said only 20% of the women, all the solo shows, only 20% are women, and 98% of the collection are male. So it's very clear that, we need to do something about it. And if we would, it's now 7 years later, invite the guerrilla girls again, they wouldn't be happy, but they would be a little satisfied. So we look at, with every acquisition, we look at what we are doing, and we are, it's a big task to diversify. And
I think, Rita, would be interesting to do a chart from the establishment of Ludwig to the last 15 years, and then in the last 15 years how the collection increased in terms of nationalities and race and gender. So I think, and with this, I want to move to this, the Wolfgang.
But you really
Wolfgang
have to count.
yeah.
You really have to count, because I said last year to my colleague Barbara, who's the curator of contemporary art, I said, oh, now we are with 80 to 20% our acquisitions. And she said, Rita, we need to count. And then I counted, and it was 60-40. So it's, we get a lot of donations, and the people who donate, they donate what we also used to collect. And that's, there are still, it's still, very many men, yes. And
but I mean, here I did a selection. I mean, the prize, the Wolfgang Hahn Prize, it exists since '94, so many years. But here I did a selection to kind of show also the openness that Ludwig has showed in the years, really with artists that are not, the kind of artists that we see in the collection of pop art. It's so I think, and we were just talking about the current exhibition with this, groundbreaking Turkish artist. So I want to ask you how, is it really at the top of your list to expand the collection globally?
Yes, that it is very important to we have a lot of gaps. We cannot really fill them, but to analyze the connection and to see, Ludwig was so focused on American art. We have such a great American art collection, but we had for 2 years Janice Mitchell, who analyzed it and looked at it, and for us it was clear before that there were no Black Afro-American artists in the collection. So we are working on this, and it's important to at least, we cannot really represent the whole range, but the obvious gaps need to be closed. As a public museum, we are, we have a responsibility to, to correct at least a little bit, the history that, our institutions, our powerful institutions have been written and have been writing. And here I see Jack Lerner is missing. She was a wonderful Wolfgang Hahn Prize recipient in 2019. I met her father in Jerusalem. He is a great collector, Adolfo and Fulvia of Brazilian. Yeah, Jack Lerner.
Jack Lerner. I had to do a selection, but of
course
you can find all the recipients from '94, and it's an interesting chart to see, how the Ludwig also choose such good, such also promising, and also how it kind of try to look at history, but with living artists, because of course it's a prize given to living artists. And just to say that right now the 2023 recipient, Francis Alice, has an exhibition at the museum. So I mean,
it's interesting when you look at the history. Cindy Sherman was one of the earliest, and sometimes now our the friends who support our museum, they say Anna Bugigian, she's not really famous, and then we say, Cindy Sherman wasn't really famous in 1994, but she was an important artist to give the award to, and so it's always different. And I now that I grow older, sometimes I have the same feelings. It's important to stay open and to be to look beyond what Although I have to say we don't really show really young artists. So it's
I mean, it's a museum, so you need to, that's we have, I mean, Rita, before being at the Ludwig at the Israel Museum, she was director of Kunstverein, and I'm sure this was a different situation, because Kunstverein is a little bit like CCA, so there's but I think you, Rita, you still keep an eye also on the young generation, I'm sure. I mean, even though at the Ludwig you have to show artists that have a different, they're in a different position in their path, in their journey. as artists. So I want to ask you the last question, and this, you know, brings you back to Israel for a moment. And so you were a curator of contemporary art at Israel Museum Jerusalem, which we see here next to the Ludwig. And I mean, these are very different museums, we know, especially now we know, because you gave us such a good summary of what Ludwig, the core of Ludwig and the collection, the program. But I would like you, I would be so happy if you could tell us really also in a very personal way, what was the difference? I mean, how do you know, and the connection, I mean, how can you compare?
Yes, you cannot really compare it, because I really think that the Israel Museum, it's such a special museum, and it has three wings. You know, it's the verticality of the place, of the land of Israel, is represented in that museum with different cultures from prehistory until the Crusaders, let's say, with all the different vertical layers. So that's one wing, and in the other, it's Judaica, it's Jewish art and life. It's the whole world with Jewish textile, Jewish ritual objects, manuscripts. So it's a horizontal layer, and then the art wing with old masters, with many facets. And I was there for international art, but it was so interesting for me to really talk with artists, to communicate with this special profile of the museum, and with it's totally different than I think in any other. There are encyclopedic museums like Metropolitan or British museums, but they're not connected to the
to the place where we are,
and from their collections. Of course, here there is African art, art of the Americas, and so on. But it's so. James Snyder always said interconnectedness, and we laughed about it a little bit, but it's so true. It's so true. And our museum, as you know, it's 20th and 21st century only. It's And when you have a beautiful photo here, the Kiesler building alone, Amont, Bartos, and Kiesler, the Shrine of the Book, what a special landmark architecture, and the Noguchi Garden. It's so amazing. It inspired me to work on a Isamu Noguchi exhibition here in Cologne. He's not only a designer, he's a true sculptor and a totally interesting artist, also with interesting political aspects in his work.
Amazing.
Absolutely fascinating.
I just made a last slide to just, these are the, I don't think they were all the projects you did while at the museum, but let's say because you were also dealing with acquisitions, but would you like to maybe pick one and tell us maybe a story or something that stayed in your memory and that you can share?
I curated George Adeakbo together with Kobi Ben-Meyer and also Dorit Shafir, who was the curator for African art. Together, it was kind of paralleling the interconnectedness that I just talked about from an artistic perspective. That was interesting. But on the right-hand side, I see, I don't know, it's a work by that you can see. It's a collection exhibition with new acquisitions. And one of the new acquisitions was Zoya Cherkassky, the Israel Committee for Israeli Art acquired it. It showed, it's kind of a diptyque. It showed Kiev, the neighborhood where she used to live before she came to Israel. I think it's Bat Yam or south of Tel Aviv. Summer and winter, very interesting. And in the middle, you see on the ground a work by Petrit Halilai, It's a necklace. When he and his family they had to flee from Kosovo. He's from Pristina. His mother buried her necklace and her necklace in the ground in the garden, and they ran away, and the war came, and the house, when they came back, the house was ruined, and she undid the jewelry, and so she still wears it today. And Petri Talilai, he enlarged this jewelry and put the stones of the broken house into the containers. So it looks like but now it's huge, and it fills a whole room, and we acquired it for the Israel Museum. And I thought it had so much to do with, a lot of works also that are in the Judaica, collection, for example. So many moving stories about hidden things where, often not only the house, but the people didn't survive, but the object stayed. So it's so much about what a museum is.
I want to add that I think this work of Petri Talilai should be on view in one of the outside gardens in the museum. So next time you go, all of you, to Israel Museum, try to look for it. And I want to say that Petri Talilai was just asked to create a work for the rooftop of the Metropolitan Museum. So just to say that Rita bought his work when he was a very young, up and coming, emerging artist. And now, next year, he will create a work for the Metropolitan. So we go back to what you were saying about Anna Boghignan, and that with contemporary art you have to have a vision, and you have to be able to look and take risk that it's so important. So
yes. And the acquisition committees who acquired this, they took the risk. It's amazing that and with many other artists, Jesse Darling, for example, and really artists that were not known were acquired. I think, it's amazing what was acquired at the time.
I think our time is over. I want to see with Daphne if there's any question from the audience. If anybody wants to ask Rita, maybe in the chat, or maybe we can
open. Maybe you can. You want to show one more slide, maybe, and then we can.
I'm not sure. There is no more slides. It's finished. So we can stay with this one, and we see if there's anyone. If not, we will.
Yes. I'd like to ask something.
Yes,
okay,
please.
We do. I will.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Everyone can unmute.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my question is, the Ludwig Museum is centered around the donation of this Mr. Ludwig. So this is the fixed collection of the museum. So like most museums, you have a fixed collection, and then you have temporary exhibits. And I wanted to know how much the temporary exhibits are influenced, if at all, by the basic collection of the museum.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So the collection consists of the works that Ludwig acquired for us, and also Haubrich. And we go on. We acquire every year, and we get donations also from other collectors, and every exhibition that we do is connected. It's our fundament for thinking about programming, about doing exhibitions. It's always the collection. So, for example, the Noguchi exhibition that I just mentioned, he is an American artist, very interesting, but in the 80s, he was maybe seen as somebody who makes beautiful stone sculpture. The whole political and questions of identity, racism that he addressed were not really present. But at the moment, it is interesting to look at his work. And as we have such a great American collection, this Japanese-American artist, it's interesting within the context of the collection. Or, for example, the Guerilla Girls, they also found out that there was only one Turkish artist in our, I mean, we are a city museum in a city where 20% of the inhabitants has Turkish roots. So we looked at it and we took action, and I did a show with Neil Yalta. She lives in Paris, and she's influential in the for Turkish art. She's a video pioneer, and and we acquired works for the collection. So the fundament, sorry to be so lengthy, the fundament is always the collection. And sometimes we do a show with an artist who is very well represented. And sometimes we make a show with artists who we think, that there is a connection, but they are missing.
Maybe sometimes, Rita, you also do the other way around. You do a show with an artist and you acquire a piece for the collection. Does it happen as well?
Yes,
I think it goes both ways. I mean, sometimes you do a show with an artist because you think he or she is important, then you will acquire maybe even from the exhibition one piece that will stay in the collection.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Okay.
Any more questions?
Philippe
No?
Cohen.
Oh, Philippe.
Hello, Rita.
Philippe Cohen?
Yes, Philippe Cohen.
Hey, Philippe, how are you? I can't see you.
You can't see me? Okay, I'm here. Check.
It's very nice to hear you.
Where are you? I will put you on spotlight.
Nothing to say about the talk. Very nice. Just to say hello, and we miss you. We worked very well together. I have a wow. It's so nice to see you after so many years, Rita.
Yes,
Thank
Philippe.
you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Philippe. I hope that I can see you. I'm happy and honored that you joined. Thank you.
Okay, so if there's no more question from the audience,
I have one question, but
yes.
I don't know if we have time. Maybe Rita can maybe answer kind of in short. But we had in a prior conversation, you're talking about how interested now that you are dealing with in the new audience of the museum, new circle of friends. Who are your new supporters? Can you maybe give us just kind of a short kind of briefing about this new audiences? Yeah.
We have time.
Yes. Yes, as a museum, like all museums, we ask ourselves, for whom are we doing our work? For whom are we preserving? Are we exhibiting? Are we acquiring? Who is our audience? And of course, there was an idea of an audience that was well educated, that already knows, about, that they used to go to museums, and we need to focus on a new public, and also the circle of friends, the politics. They ask us to do blockbuster exhibition at least once a year, or every second year, please. And we realized that, for example, we did a show, the Green Museum. There were no famous artists included. There were questions addressed with regard to sustainability. Or we showed an artist, Ursula, who is a Cologne artist who is underrated, and she comes from surrealism. She didn't really exhibit, but she has a huge oeuvre. And there were 100,000 people coming, which is a lot for us. For an exhibition, visitors, 100,000 is it's as if we have a big exhibition of a famous artist, because there is, we are good in social media, for a German museum. So we address questions and try to be easy in our approach. I always didn't like, heavy sentences and very academic approach. Try to people come to look at the works of art and not to read texts. And well, and then we use new, different languages. We use Turkish or Kurdish or Ukrainian, and we did a show on Ukrainian modernism last year. It's, with many Ukrainian visitors also, or, with Turkish or Kurdish visitors. And there will be an exhibition where Francis Alice will probably dedicate a huge space to the children of Cologne. So we are working with children to curate and so on. So I think we need to find new methods and be aware that young people are not coming to the museum when we don't address questions, and when it's too academic, they don't like books.
It seems, Rita, that it's always through the art, so it's never something, like I think the example with Francis Alice. I mean, instead of doing an exhibition for children, let's invite an artist who works with children, not because you ask him, but because, for whoever has seen the pavilion, the Belgian pavilion at the last Venice Biennale, Francis Alice works with children. So I think this is also going back to what we said about empowering the artist. It's an institution that believes in the artist. So the artist will also solve the problem of outreach and not some kind of marketing strategies, no?
Yes. Yeah, and the questions that, yes, and these are intrinsic questions of artistic thinking and practice that are, relevant and innovative.
Absolutely. Great. Rita, thank you so much. Stay with us a few more minutes because I have the announcement for the next session 4 of...
Nicola, can I ask you something? Can I ask
yes.
Rita? Hi.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Tamar. Rita, I wanted to
Tamar,
ask...
hey. How are you?
I wanted to ask
see you.
Yeah, I didn't realize I was on mute. Rita, I wanted to ask you something about what's going on in Germany now with contemporary art, with Candice Bright's. Sorry.
No, it's really, it's a very,
How do you feel about it?
Serious, and it's very, very complex and difficult. And, on the one hand, it's a big range of, we have to be aware that, and our contemporary collection presentation at the moment, Barbara Engelbach, looks at this and says it's important, when talking about global view, not to implement anti-imperialism, because it's so often connected to anti-Semitism, and it is important to look at artists' positions on the one hand side, and she will do talks with interesting academics and thinkers, and in spring. So on the one hand side, we have to really look closely that we are not, that we won't show, anti-Semitic positions. And on the other side, it's so important that we kind of keep the discussion open, and that and it's such a thin line that we start, and we also start to eliminate Jewish voices. And
Because
Candice
Candice,
writes,
for instance, she's Jewish, but she, what she claims is that you can't voice pro-Palestinian voices in Germany today because immediately they are perceived as anti-Semitic, and because of the history and the German guilt, you're not supposed to say anything which might be interpreted anti-Semitic, which is not. It's just, because I think there is a lot of confusion between legitimate criticism of the Israeli government and anti-Semitism. It's not the same,
Tamara, I think this discussion will keep us here for at least
for hours. No, I was
2
just
days.
wondering.
No, 2 days, not hours, 2 days. I think, and I think this is it's very important that we stay focused to, the importance of art to bring questions that are open. And I think, I think it's for another time.
I just want to, there is a great scientist here in Germany, Miron Mendel, and he makes a plea for the tolerance of ambiguity. And this is something that we in our museum try to keep to, but still, and one other important thing is that we are turning to right wing. The Germans are voting very right wing, start to vote very right wing, and the right wing is pro-Israel. So it seems as if all anti-Semitism is coming only from migrant Muslim people, and it's a prejudice which we have to fight too. But it's very complex, and
Thank you.
But we have to be aware. We have to be very, very much awake. That's very true.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Rita. Really. And to all of you, see you, I hope, on January 15 for session 4 with Eugenio Viola, who is Chief Curator at the Museum of Modern Art in Bogotá. Rita,
Wow.
thank you so much.
Thank you
I
very
hope we'll see each other very soon. Thank you.
Everyone.
And have a good night to everyone. Have a quiet end of the week. Thank you.